What are your favourite video games of this generation? I know mine, and I'm going to tell you right now. Let's get into it. Hey up, and welcome to New Horizon Media. I'm Jason England, tech and gaming journalist, and I thank you for taking the time out of your day to click on this video and check us out. Cheers. So as we go into a new generation of games with either a drastically oversized broadband router, a literal fridge, or the equivalent of the drive-through intercom at Mackie D's that I would be begging for a big tasty with bacon through right now if it wasn't for this bloody pandemic, it's only fair that we look back to 2013 when all of this generation started and the things we had to worry about were super trivial, like whether you could play second-hand games on your Xbox One, whether the PS4 was supposed to sound like a jet engine, and being utterly blown away by the quality of games that you could get on your phone. As far as console generations go, we've been absolutely blessed over the past 7 years with some incredible titles, and I'm here to tell you what I think the best ones were. And no, this list does not include God of War and The Last of Us Part 2. Now hold up, before you get rather irate in the comments, just to give you the context, this is my picks for what I think are my favourite games. Give me time to talk to you about what I think my favourite games are, and if you agree or disagree, let me know in the comments. It'd be good to talk to you all and see what your favourite games are. So we're going to come out the gate strong with Marvel Spider-Man. That's right, the classic summer blockbuster superhero movie of a game that, in the words of literally 1,000,001 reviewers, I swear I wrote this as well, it makes you feel like Spider-Man. It's quite simply one of the most enjoyable experiences that you can get, and the fact that it holds up after 2 years and that we're all so excited about the new one coming out. In fact, I've got the new one back here. And my advice to you would be, if you're getting Spider-Man Miles Morales, the Ultimate Edition, is to flip that cover artwork, because this is seriously cool. But I digress. First of all, have you seen how insane it looks? Even on 7-year-old hardware, it still manages to look so beautiful. And that is underpinned by a beautiful orchestral soundtrack. As a music nerd with the better part of 2 decades of classical music training underneath my belt, you realise that that stuff is it's really important. It's half of the experience. It can look great, but if it doesn't have the music to really involve you and the sound design to really grab you by the scruff of the neck into its world, then it's just a waste. Amazing gameplay. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to completely ignore the fact that there are some terrible stealth scenes in there. But for the 80% of the game that you're playing as Spider-Man, you're getting a much faster version of the kind of combat system Rocksteady gave you in the Batman Arkham series, and the fluidity of it is just magnificent. And it essentially makes you look past its flaws. The road bump of an MJ stealth scene through an art gallery is not necessarily something that hinders your whole experience. It's just a roadblock that makes you look forward to when you can get back into the web slinger's shoes. And one of the areas that is always so important to me, that makes me think that's one of the best games of the generation, is replayability. I'm always a single player gamer. I get bored easily of multiplayer games, but I've gone through this story 2 or 3 times on New Game Plus, and it's still just as amazing every single time. No bad moment seems like a game-breaking moment. It just all feels like this. It's an incredible superhero movie that you get to play in. And that is why, beyond the likes of God of War, Horizon Zero Dawn, Last of Us Part 2, Spider-Man gets my vote. And now we move on to something completely different and a whole lot darker. I am talking about Hellblade: Senua's Saga. Hold up. Hi, this is Editing Jason here. Turns out that this idiot keeps calling it Hellblade: Senua's Saga, and it's actually Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. So my apologies. I'll go back to this moron. A little story about the first time I played Hellblade. It was actually on this thing as part of Xbox Game Pass, and up until that point I had played games in stereo audio. And don't get me wrong, all of these games sounded really, really good. They had amazing soundtracks, they had some good Foley SFX and all kinds of things, amazing voice acting as well. But this is the first time that I'd played a game with spatial audio, like 3D audio around you, and oh my god. If there's ever a game to show you just how important sound can be, it's this. Hellblade: Senua's Saga is a fascinating deep dive into not just Viking lore, but also into the psyche of somebody. There's a whole warning at the beginning in terms of it addressing mental health, but it does so with incredibly impactful implications upon the rest of what you're doing. Voices in your head literally dotted all around thanks to the spatial audio. And the gameplay, as you'd expect from Ninja Theory, is up there with some of the best. The perspective shifting visual puzzles are engaging in a new way that I've not really seen in other games. The combat is both simple in the way that it works, but also deep in exactly what you can make it do, which is the perfect balance that I love from any game like this. And Ninja Theory doesn't half know how to scare the crap out of you in some of its bigger moments. I won't spoil it for the people who haven't played it before, but to those who have, the moment that I'll refer to very lightly is the bit where you can't see anything, when everything is based on sound. I needed to take a break from the computer after playing that bit. I'm just thinking about it now and just play the game. Just play it and thank me later. And now we move on to my next pick, which is Reigns' Game of Thrones. Now I know what you're thinking with this choice. You're probably thinking, oh, but that's actually not a console game, it's just a mobile game. Why would you waste your time with that? To which I would say, nice glasses by the way, and I'm very jealous of your mechanical keyboard, but don't jump down my throat just yet. And let me explain why I am absolutely in love with Reigns and why I think it deserves a spot on this list. To give you the context of what this game is, the way I'm going to explain it is probably not going to make it sound all that appealing. In this household, we call it King Tinder, because that's essentially what it is. You are the king or queen, just general ruler of the land, and your job is to keep that kingdom running. And you keep it running via a series of binary decisions that are decided by either swiping left or right on a set of decision cards, kind of like Tinder. Underneath all of that simplistic layer, there's so much depth to the multiple layered cake that is this game that you will come to love and appreciate every single moment of it. From the smallest of choices, from the smallest of card swipes, having massive implications throughout the rest of your game. It truly has a unique way of grabbing your attention and making sure it doesn't let go until you're done with the game at that point, or you come to your bus stop, or you're getting off the tube at that point, whatever it may be. It is that good. And the Game of Thrones tie-in perfects it for me, because you've got that addictive gameplay of decision making and going through your story in that respect, but then you tie it in with all of the different implications of Westeros and the fact that winter is coming, and you've got to ensure that you've got every single part of the world ready for this impending doom. And I will say it loud and I will say it proud. The story told in Reigns' Game of Thrones is a far better story than the final season of Game of Thrones actually is. But keeping on with mobile gameplay, I'm going to introduce you to Mini Metro. So when I was a kid, I had a utter obsession with trains, to the point that me and my granddad would go down to Sutton Leisure Centre and we would take a look. We would go to the model train fair. And what is it I loved about trains? Obviously I love the locomotives. I know that my mum has a picture of me with the mallards somewhere up in the loft. And it's also the creative thought that goes into solving the problems of hitting all the different stations and ensuring that everybody in your model world or in the real world get picked up, and that it is this super fascinating form of transport. Yes, I am a gigantic loser for saying that, I'm aware. And as you can probably tell from me setting all this up, that's where Mini Metro comes in to fill that hole in my life for a train-based game on my phone. But here's the weird bit. My favourite bit, even though I've spoken at length about how much I like trains, isn't actually the trains. You see, we're all looking for a bit of mindfulness, a bit of positive brain stimulation, and that is where this game comes in. The minimal, chilled out soundtrack of just a continuous tone that is built up upon as you do more and more things, to the very light touch of the visuals that you can see, and to the simplistic gameplay that gets you to just put a very light strategic hat on while you plan out your particular routes, and just the behavior, the mental stimulation of just creating these tracks, recreating these tracks to ensure that they are as efficient as possible. Mini Metro is one of the most chilled out experiences you can get. And if you haven't played it yet, where have you been? You need to play this. On to the people using iOS and have an Apple Arcade subscription, or if they have that free 2-month one that they're still yet to use, get Mini Motorway. This is the sequel to that, and I've been absolutely loving that as well. And of course, on motorways, you get cars. And speaking of cars, a terrible segue is coming in. My next choice is Forza Horizon 4. Now, I came pretty late to this. I came to Forza Horizon 4 from getting Xbox Game Pass for PC. It has sucked so many hours out of my life playing this. It comes down to 3 key things that I absolutely love about Forza Horizon 4. The soundtrack is an absolute belter across all of the stations, from classical music all the way down to metal, and then with a lot of like drum bass in the middle. The gameplay, which I've never quite got on with like racing simulators, I don't have the patience to learn those, so to get some kind of arcade-like control on this is super good. And the free roaming world based on the UK, rich with detail and a very diverse landscape. And that's all there is to say about Horizon 4 really. Go try it yourself. Like, I've sunk a good 60 hours into it since I started back in, I first started playing it a couple of months ago. And that goes to show the strength of this game, the fact that in just 2 short months it has become one of my favourite games of this generation. And next up, we go to this bunch. As many of my friends will tell you, I am the biggest fanboy when it comes to Naughty Dog games. From the platforming of Crash, taking that and combining it with the free roaming element of Jak 2 Renegade, one of my personal favourite games of all time, and to the groove that they have certainly found over the past 15 years with linear stories told really well. It's a studio that's grown up with me and managed to continue to thoroughly entertain me through every single game that they come out with. I thoroughly enjoyed both Uncharted 4 and The Last of Us Part 2 that came out during this generation. And if I was to weigh them both up, I would definitely go for Uncharted 4. Now, that is not to say that The Last of Us Part 2 is a bad game at all. It's actually a spectacular game to play, and if you haven't picked it up yet, throughout all of the controversy that kicked off around the story's tropes and its direction, then please do. But the problem with The Last of Us Part 2 comes from its own design. The story follows like what seems to be quite a simple 3-act structure to kind of get you to this overall conclusion. And you think you hit that end. Then there's a whole other bunch of story on the end that doesn't really make an impact on you. You actively don't want to play it because you want the best for your characters on screen. Whereas Uncharted 4, on the other hand, is a joy from start to finish. There's not a single part in it where you don't feel overwhelmed by what's going on. It's through and through the best Uncharted game that they have ever made. And for all of the plot points, from all of the ludicrous set pieces to all of the finer details, all of the smaller emotional notes that reach out of the screen and grab you by your emotions and pull you into this story, makes it a spectacular experience and something that you absolutely should play if you haven't already. In fact, I'm looking at it, you might go back to it again. And last, but certainly not least, as I know that some of you will let me know in the comments of how many that I've missed, and I want to talk to all of you about it, so please do stick around for a chat, is Tetris Effect. You see, the gameplay of Tetris is functionally sound. It's always been sound, to the point that you can easily spend a good hour playing Tetris on your phone or wherever you may be playing it. It's that kind of game. It's super easy to pick up, it's super intuitive. You could give it to anybody and they would pick up what they're supposed to do really fast. But never did I think I would be truly encapsulated in the atmosphere of a Tetris game. Coming from the mind of Tetsuya Mizuguchi, this is, as you can see, an absolute feast for the eyes. It's sometimes, and I would forgive you for getting distracted by everything that's going on screen, to try and focus on what's going on with this spectacular light show and all of the visual feast that plays out before you as you play. And I would expect absolutely nothing less from the brain behind Rez. You know Rez, right? That absolutely insane treat of a game that came out on PS2 and has followed us throughout generations now. There's a lot of ways that people describe video games out there, and I've never really subscribed to many of them. Calling games experiences, saying that they are pieces of art, for example. I've always just thought that games are games, but Tetris Effect is the first game to show me that a game can be an experience. It's something super easy to pick up and play, but it's so much more than that. Atmosphere created by the visuals and the incredible beat by beat music that evolves as you go through the level. If you haven't tried it yet, please pick it up. And that's it. As you can tell, it took a bit of a weird twist and turn around in the middle there, but they're all incredible experiences that I implore you to go and play. So what do you think? I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thumbs up if you liked it, subs if you loved it, and I will catch you all in the next one. Take care and have a cracking week. Bye.